April showers are meant to be rain, not snow. Again.
Bransfield!
The 2012 HD do-over of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was a travesty and directly addresses the concerns I have around empty, pointless nostalgia in general. Why was it revisited? Why mangle memories in such a way? What was achieved by bringing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD to the world? Nothing. That's what. Why it didn't go with the original European name for the first game, Tony Hawk's Skateboarding, on the other hand, I do understand, but that's besides the point. Was Tony Hawk's HD a bad do-over? Yes, it was. It added nothing above and beyond the experience of going back to the original games and, in fact, ruined much of what made those early games so great. It was predatory and smacked of the lure of the almighty dollar, pushing people into engaging in some empty, mawkish nostalgia. And really not even understanding what it was they were doing to begin with. A papier-mâché facsimile of the originals, if you will. No, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD was not a good time, and it shouldn't have happened, and it tainted the well of nostalgia from which we all draw for a long time afterwards. "2020's Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 then was not something I particularly cared about. I still played the originals on PlayStation, sometimes Pro Skater 3 on the PS2. Every now and then I might venture to Tony Hawk's Underground, only to soon back off when I remembered again the Jackass themes that haven't exactly survived the passage of time unscathed, much as I loved all that idiocy back in the day. And it's not just because it was Activision behind it all. It was the entire nostalgia industrial complex working against my hopes, dreams and expectations. We'd had one pop at a nostalgic trip to Tony Hawk Land in HD, and it was akin to Euro Disney's first year in the business. There's a reference I'm sure you'll all get. I know how to keep an audience feeling like they belong. But yeah, another remake-flavoured trip to Birdmanville in glorious high definition just sounded like a recipe for disaster. Well, not disaster, a recipe for a mediocre, easy-to-ignore video game remake that ultimately wouldn't have a huge impact on anything in the wider world. So not a disaster at all then. Not like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5, which was an abject disaster literally akin to the Hindenburg. Except, it turns out Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 is fantastic, and is one of those exceedingly rare occasions in which empty nostalgia is shown the door, with the warm embrace of people who care, pay attention, and, well, give a shit taking over. What a bizarre feeling that was on first loading this one up, let me tell you. See, here I am, getting older all the time, looking older all the time, feeling younger in my mind, and with those miles on the clock, the cynicism can take over. It's easy to let it take root. You see many failures and false starts as life goes on, have many a promise broken and many an expectation not met. You might also really look forward to the 2012 game and be let down, though I guess that's not as universal a concept. Whatever the case, you learn to lower your expectations. And I think Tony Hawk 2020 might well have preyed on that factor successfully. It got the hype and attention, and the hope of many was thrown behind it, but did we expect it to nail that nostalgia? Did we expect it to be a careful and curated mix of the best elements of the first 4 games? Well, purely going by the name with the 1 and 2 in it, I'd say no. Spoiler, reverts were added in Tony Hawk's 3 and Wally plants came in Hawkman 4, so technically the title of this game is a lie. A lie! But even blatant lies like that don't stop it from just being brilliant. It's so good, so good. It's incredibly difficult to successfully keep the nostalgia factor in something while also freshening the experience and slapping in some newer bits and bobs to make it appeal to a younger audience. But Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 does that, and it does it well. Yeah, it's not exactly slammed with new newness, it is in the most part a greatest hits package from those early games, but the fact it bothers to do anything new at all is brilliant. Again, it's so good. You get those old skaters, plenty of whom haven't even been in any video games for decades, like my old favourite Alyssa Steamer, alongside a batch of new skaters. The game's not just about showing off the old guard and screaming about the past being pure and kind and special. It's also pushing the knowledge and awareness of the up-and-comers, or today's established awesome folk who those of us not paying attention didn't know about. And as shitty and genuinely morally bankrupt as Activision might be, There's a defined push for more inclusivity and representation in Tony 1 and 2, including transgender non-binary skater Leo Baker, a first for the series, even though it's a remake. That sort of push to include the new, to update things that can be updated without taking away from what made the originals this new game is standing on the shoulders of so great, well, that's what we like to call a sympathetic update. Plus, the psychopaths and mental incompetents out there still get plenty of their original stuff to fall back on, so they can't even pretend to complain about their game being ruined when they're engaging in yet more incessant culture war bullshit. Also, it was never your game because you have no values beyond consumption and reaction, so I won't allow you to even so much as try and claim this franchise. New songs too. Not only are there a mere 3 ditties missing from the original game soundtracks, which is impressive given music licensing sounds like it's a literal hellscape, but there are dozens of new tracks from across the punk rock, rap and whatever else scenes. For the game to come back and do the job of introducing us to new skaters, fine. Introducing us to new music we might not know, exactly like those early games did? Well, that's just a tiny bit too cute for words, and I love it, even if nothing is as good as Lagwagon's May 16, so why bother with other music, eh? I want to double back on that sympathetic update comment from a minute ago. It's clear Hawk 1-2 was made with an eye on what made the early titles great. The original handling engine was layered into the code of the new game to make sure it felt right. Vicarious Visions, the developer, was paying attention. But to me, the most telling, the clearest marker of how understanding the creative process with THPSHD 2 was, is the mall, the recreation of one stage from the very first game. In the original it's closed, sure, but it's still a cold yet shiny monument to capitalism from the world of 22 years ago. In the 2020 game? It's a decaying, abandoned backdrop to any number of zombie movies making the "but the real baddies are people" point you can think of. Subtle? Not really, but it shows a savvy and understanding behind the process that underlines the whole endeavour. This wasn't crapped out as an afterthought. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 was made with a reverence for the source material that never strayed into being blinded by the past. It was made with a sincere, heartfelt appreciation with what came before, but the intelligence and forethought to understand that remaining static in its ways and means would have been ultimately an empty gesture, playing solely to the ever-dwindling crowd of 30 to 40-somethings who vaguely remember playing this series half a lifetime ago. Updated for business reasons it was, ultimately, but updated for the right reasons it was also. Nostalgia is wielded as a weapon. It's used as a marketing stick with which to batter us all upside the head with. Remember this? Course you do. Buy the shinier version of the past, our formative years packaged up into something cynical, grasping at your bank balance and trying to milk you for all you're worth because, hey, the past was warmer and friendlier and wasn't life better back then? Sure it was. You should buy this thing we slapped together and put an updated logo on. It'll help you relive the youth you left behind you a long time ago. There's always a danger with nostalgia. I see it in many articles, on many videos, and certainly in plenty of products. It can be empty. It can provide nothing of worth beyond a reminder that a thing existed and the pleasant but pointless pang of warmth you get from remembering it. It's often cynical, often lazy, often done for no reason beyond profit, be it financial profit or the profit that comes from growing an audience for your particular brand of waffle. I mainly cover retro games, but I see nostalgia, as a rule, as a dangerous path to tread. Again, like the disaster bit, that's dangerous as a relative term, not an absolute. Nostalgia isn't going to come and burn your house down with you inside it, but it will rinse your wallet and your ability to appreciate the now should you give it the chance. Because it's been weaponized and it's being wielded. Turns out, though, that sometimes even the most evil of corporations can be lured into treating nostalgia with a more careful hand. Sure, the lure is money. Activision wanted money, and someone convinced the brass it could make money in doing Tony Hawk's 1 and 2, so they did it. I'm sure the Birdman himself and plenty of folks at Vicarious Visions had more honourable intentions behind making the game, but ultimately it does all come back to money. But that's the point. It worked out for the best. It was handled correctly. Thought and care went into it, and the result was a mix of the curated old and the introduced new. A balance 80-20 in favour of nostalgia, sure, but enough that it didn't feel lazy or cynical and displayed a love and affection for a series I personally adore. And best of all, it worked as a great advert for the future of the series. I expect Tony Hawk's Skateboarding 6 to be a beast of a game, even if a lot of the music will be stuff I don't know anymore. May 16 till I die, yo. Wait, what? No!
Fuck your fuzzy cheese, get some mushy peas, cause we're having Chippy Tea tonight. When your fingers have a rumble and your pocket have a fumble, you're having Chippy Tea tonight.